Daeho Kim wiped sweat from his forehead as he looked up at the half-built apartment tower. The construction site was quiet now. All his co-workers had gone home hours ago. Only the security guard remained at the front gate. He's probably asleep in his chair again. It was past midnight, but Daeho needed the overtime pay. His mother's medical bills kept growing, and the regular day shift barely covered rent. He picked up his hammer and got back to work on the metal framework. The night air was cool against his skin. Seoul's city lights stretched out below him like a carpet of stars. He had been working construction for 8 years now. His hands were rough and calloused. His back ached most days, but the work was honest, and he was good at it. Daeho was hammering a support beam when the light appeared above him at first. He thought it was a helicopter. The light was bright and white, hovering about 50 feet overhead, but it made no sound. Helicopters were loud. This thing was completely silent. He stopped working and stared up at it. The light grew brighter, much brighter. Soon, it was like looking at the sun. Daeho raised his hand to shield his eyes. Then everything went white. When Daeho opened his eyes, he was lying on a smooth metal floor. The surface was warm under his back. Above him, soft blue light came from panels in the ceiling. The air smelled strange, like cleaning chemicals mixed with something he could not name. He sat up quickly. His head spun for a moment, then cleared. He was in a room with white walls that curved upward into the ceiling. There were no corners anywhere. Everything was smooth and rounded. Where was he? Daeho got to his feet. He still wore his work clothes, dirty jeans, steel-toed boots, and a torn t-shirt. His tool belt was gone. So was his helmet. The room had no door that he could see. But as he walked toward one wall, a section of it simply disappeared. Beyond was a long hallway with the same white walls and blue lighting. Daeho stepped into the hallway. His boots made soft tapping sounds on the metal floor. He called out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" No answer. He walked down the hall, looking for a way out. The walls were perfectly smooth. No handles, no buttons, no signs. Just endless white curves under blue light. After walking for several minutes, he came to a larger room. This one had windows. Through them, he could see stars. Not the stars you see from Earth, with their familiar patterns. These were different stars, brighter and more colorful. Some were red, some were blue, some were colors he had no names for. Daeho pressed his face against the window. Below the stars was nothing, just empty black space. He was on a ship of some kind. A ship in space. "This cannot be real," he said out loud. His voice echoed in the empty room. A soft sound made him turn around. Part of the far wall had opened and something was coming through. It was tall. Much taller than Daeho, who was not a small man. It walked on 2 legs like a human, but that was where the similarity ended. Its skin was pale gray and seemed to shimmer slightly. Its head was larger than a human head, with huge dark eyes that took up most of its face. It had no nose that Daeho could see, just 2 small holes. Its mouth was a thin line. The creature wore a white robe that reached the floor. In its hands, which had too many fingers, it carried a device that looked like a metal tablet with lights blinking on its surface. The creature stopped about 10 feet away from Daeho. It made soft clicking sounds that might have been speech. The device in its hands glowed brighter. Daeho did not move. His heart was pounding so hard he thought it might burst. This was not possible. Things like this did not happen to construction workers from Seoul. This had to be a dream. A very strange, very real-feeling dream. The creature took a step closer. It held up the device, pointing it at Daeho like a camera. Lights danced across its surface. "Stay back," Daeho said. His voice was shaky. The creature did not seem to understand. It took another step forward, still holding the device. Daeho's fear turned to anger. He had been taken from his work, brought to this strange place without his permission. This thing, whatever it was treating him like some kind of animal in a zoo. "I said, stay back," Daeho shouted. The creature paused but did not retreat. Instead, it made more clicking sounds and took another step forward. That was when Daeho's patience ran out. He had been in fights before. Growing up in his neighborhood, you learned to defend yourself early. He knew how to throw a punch. But this was different. This was not anger at a bully or a drunk man causing trouble. This was pure survival instinct. Deho swung his right fist at the creature's center mass. He did not mean to hit it so hard. He just wanted it to back off, to give him space. But the moment his fist connected, something impossible happened. The creature flew backward through the air like it had been shot from a cannon. It crashed into the wall behind it with a sound like breaking glass. The wall cracked. Not just the surface-deep cracks ran through what looked like solid. The creature slumped to the floor and did not move. Deho stared at his fist. It was not even sore. He had hit the creature hard enough to send it flying across the room and crack a metal wall. But his hand felt fine. Around him, lights began flashing. A sound like an alarm started wailing. More sections of wall opened and other creatures rushed in. They were all tall and gray like the first one, but these carried different devices. Some looked like weapons. They saw their fallen companion and the cracked wall. Then they all looked at Deho. One of them made rapid clicking sounds. The others spread out, surrounding him but keeping their distance. Deho looked around the circle of alien faces. Their huge dark eyes showed what looked like fear. They were afraid of him. That was when he realized something was very, very wrong. He was just a construction worker. He was strong from years of physical labor, but he was not superhuman. He should not have been able to send a 7-foot-tall alien flying across a room. He should not have been able to crack what looked like reinforced metal with his bare hand. But he had done exactly that. The aliens kept their distance, watching him carefully. Their devices beeped and flashed, but none of them came closer. Deho looked down at his hands again. They looked the same as always. Rough, calloused, human. But they had just done something impossible. What was happening to him? Dr. Chiron stared at his computer screen in disbelief. The numbers made no sense. According to every law of physics he knew, what had just happened in the observation room was impossible. He was the chief physicist aboard the research. Vessel Astral Dawn. For over 200 years, he had studied the biological capabilities of thousands of species across the galaxy. He had seen creatures that could lift 10 times their body weight. He had studied beings that could run faster than ground vehicles. But he had never seen anything like this. The human's punch had generated 847,000 units of kinetic energy. That was enough force to dent the hull of a battleship. Yet the creature weighed only 180 standard units and showed no external signs of enhanced muscular development. It was physically impossible. Chiron ran the calculations again. Then again, the numbers stayed the same. He checked his equipment for malfunctions. Everything was working perfectly. Senior researcher Thelana entered his laboratory. Her gray skin was darker than usual, a sign of stress among their species. She moved slowly, still recovering from the human's unexpected attack. "How is Zoland?" Chiron asked, referring to the injured researcher. "He will recover," Thelana replied, "but 3 of his ribs are broken. The medical team says he was lucky the human held back." "Held back?" Chiron looked up from his screen. "What do you mean?" "According to Dr. Velcor, the impact patterns show the human was not trying to cause serious harm. If he had put his full strength into that punch, Zolan would be dead." Chiron felt a chill run through him. If the readings he was seeing represented a human holding back, what was their actual maximum capability? "Have you reviewed my energy calculations?" he asked. Thelana nodded grimly. "I also had them verified by 3 other physics teams. They all reached the same conclusion, which is that our understanding of physics is either completely wrong, or this species is operating under rules we have never encountered before." Chiron turned back to his screen. He pulled up biological scans of the human. Muscle density appeared normal for a creature of its type. Bone structure showed standard calcium phosphate composition. Brain activity was within expected. Ranges for an intelligent species, everything. About the human appeared ordinary except for one thing. It could apparently violate the fundamental laws of energy conservation. "I want to run more tests," Chiron said. Absolutely not, Thalana replied quickly. The human is clearly dangerous. We should return it to its planet immediately. But think about what this could mean, Chiron protested. If we could understand how they generate this energy, it could revolutionize our technology. We could build ships that travel faster than light without quantum drives. We could create tools that work beyond the limits of molecular bonds. Thalana's large eyes grew even larger. Or we could all be killed by something we do not understand. I am sending a message to the Galactic Council immediately. She left the laboratory, leaving Chiron alone with his impossible data. Meanwhile, 3 levels below, Deho sat in a stronger containment cell. The walls were thicker now, made from some kind of dark metal that hummed with energy. The aliens had been careful not to get close to him when they moved him here. He was not alone anymore. Across from him, in an identical cell, sat a young woman. She was clearly human, with black hair tied back in a ponytail and wearing what looked like a martial arts uniform. She appeared to be in her mid-20s. You must be the new arrival, she said in Korean. I heard quite a commotion upstairs. Deho was so relieved to hear his own language that he almost cried. You're Korean too? How long have you been here? 3 days, the woman replied. My name is Soyoung Park. I teach Taekwondo in Busan. Or I did, before they took me. Daeho Kim, construction worker from Seoul. He looked around at the metal walls. Do you know what they want? Soyoung laughed, but there was no humor in it. They want to study us. Like we're some kind of rare animals. They keep running tests and taking measurements. The problem is, none of their equipment seems to work properly around humans. What do you mean? Watch this, Soyoung said. She stood up and walked to the back wall of her cell. She placed both hands against the metal surface and pushed. The wall flexed inward like rubber. Daeho's mouth fell open. The wall was at least a foot thick and made of some kind of advanced metal alloy. Soyoung was barely over 5 feet tall and could not have weighed more than 120 pounds. Yet she was bending it like it was made of clay. How are you doing that? He asked. Soyoung stepped back. The wall slowly returned to its original shape. I have no idea. I've been doing martial arts for 15 years. I'm strong for my size, but not like this. Not impossibly strong. She sat back down on the small bench that served as her bed. The aliens are completely confused. Their scientists keep running the same tests over and over. They measure my muscles, scan my bones, analyze my blood. Everything comes back normal. But then, I do something like that. Their equipment starts giving readings that make no sense. Daeho told her about his encounter with the alien researcher. How he had punched it across the room without really trying. How he had cracked what looked like reinforced metal with his bare hand. Same thing happened to me on my first day, Soyoung said. Except I kicked through a door they said was designed to stop creatures 3 times my size. The look on their faces was priceless. But how is this possible? Daeho asked. We're just normal people. I don't think we are anymore, Soyoung replied quietly. Or maybe we never were, and we just didn't know it. Before Daeho could ask what she meant, the lights in their cells began flashing. A soft alarm sounded, different from the one that had gone off during his fight. Through the transparent wall that separated their cells from the corridor, they saw several aliens hurrying past. These were different from the researchers. They wore darker robes and carried what were obviously weapons. What's happening? Daeho asked. So Daehyung stood up and pressed her face against the transparent wall. I think we're about to have company. And from the look of those weapons, I don't think they're here to run more tests. The sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor, multiple sets of them moving in formation like soldiers. Soyoung Daeho said, If we can do these impossible things, do you think we can get out of here? She looked at him with a grim smile. I guess we're about to find out. The footsteps were getting closer. Through the wall, they could see the first of the armed aliens approaching their cells. Daeho looked down at his hands again. He still could not believe what they were capable of. But if these aliens meant them harm, he was ready to find out just how impossible he could really be. The first alien soldier appeared at their cells, weapon raised and ready. Dr. Chiron watched through reinforced observation windows as the third human was brought aboard the Astral Dawn. This one was different from the first two, where Daeho was a laborer and Sa-young was a martial artist. This new arrival carried himself like a soldier. His name was Hoyan Wu Lee. According to the identification found on him when he was taken from Earth, he was 32 years old and had the bearing of someone used to command, even unconscious on the transport stretcher. He looked dangerous. "Wake him gently," Chiron instructed the medical team. "We cannot afford another incident like the first day." The medical officer nodded and administered a mild stimulant. Within moments, Hoyan Wu's eyes opened. Unlike Daeho, who had been confused and frightened, Hoyan Wu assessed his situation immediately. He sat up slowly, taking in the white walls, the alien medical equipment, and the creature standing around him. His expression remained calm and controlled. "I am going to assume you are not human," he said in accented but clear. English Dr. Chiron stepped forward. The ship's translation system converted his words into sounds the human could understand. "You are correct. I am Dr. Chiron. You are aboard our research vessel." "Research," Hoyan Wu repeated. "Into what?" "Into your species. We have discovered that humans possess capabilities that should not be possible." Hoyan Wu stood up from the medical table. The restraints that were supposed to hold him snapped like thread. He had not even seemed to notice them. The medical team stepped back nervously. Chiron held up his hands in what he hoped was a peaceful gesture. "We do not wish to harm you," Chiron said. "We only want to understand." "Understand what exactly?" Hoyan Wu asked. He looked down at the broken restraints around his wrists. "You are having the same problem the others mentioned." "Others?" "The two humans you already have. Daeho and Sa-young. I can sense them nearby." Chiron felt his skin darken with surprise. "You can sense them? How?" Hoyan Wu paused, as if listening to something only he could hear. "I am not sure. It is like hearing voices in another room. I know they are there, and I know they are. Different now. Changed. Changed how?" Before Hoyan Wu could answer, Captain Veltar's voice came over the communication system. "All crew to stations. We have incoming vessels requesting permission to dock through the medical bay's windows." They could see the lights of approaching ships. Chiron counted at least 12 different vessels, each representing a different galactic civilization. "Popular subjects, are we?" Hoyan Wu observed. Chiron nodded grimly. "Word of your abilities has spread. Everyone wants to study you. Then perhaps we should give them something to study." An hour later, ship's main laboratory had been converted into a testing facility. Representatives from 7 different alien species watched from behind protective barriers as Janae Cho was brought in. She was the 4th human. Taken just that morning from a gym in Daegu, where she had been training for the Olympics. At 24, she was the youngest of the humans, but her athletic training was immediately obvious in the way she moved. Unlike the others, Janae had been awake when captured. She had seen the alien ship land and had actually volunteered to go with them when they explained they needed her help. "This is fascinating," she said. "Are you all from different planets?" Dr. Chiron introduced her to the other researchers. There was Dr. Mordok from the Korthoni Empire, a military scientist interested in the humans' combat potential. Dr. Lixera represented the Nexari Collective, a peaceful species that studied biological evolution. Others came from civilizations across the galaxy. Janae Chiron said, "We would like to run some tests with your permission. We want to understand how your body generates the energy we have detected." "What kind of tests?" she asked. "Simple physical exercises. Lifting, jumping, striking targets. Nothing that should cause you harm." Janae looked around at the assembled scientists. "And this will help you understand why we can do impossible things?" "We hope so." "All right," she agreed. "But I want to see the other humans afterward." The first test was simple. Dr. Mordok, the military scientist, had brought a weight made from compressed quantum steel. It weighed exactly 1 ton and was considered impossible for any biological creature to lift. "Just see how much you can move it," Chiron instructed. Janae approached the weight and examined it. She placed her hands on either side and lifted. The weight came up easily, as if it weighed nothing at well. All the assembled scientists made various sounds of amazement in their different languages. Dr. Mordock checked his instruments 3 times to make sure they were working properly. "How does it feel?" Chiron asked. Light, Janae replied, holding the ton of metal above her head with one hand. "Like lifting a book." She set the weight down gently and brushed imaginary dust off her hands. The second test involved speed. Dr. Lixera had set up a reaction course with light sensors. The fastest recorded time belonged to a species that had evolved specifically for rapid movement. Janae completed the course in half that time. The third test was the most important. Dr. Chiron had prepared a striking platform, made from the same material as starship hulls. It was designed to absorb massive amounts of kinetic energy. Without being damaged, just hit it as hard as you feel comfortable, he instructed. Janae pulled back her fist and struck the platform. With a simple straight punch, the platform did not just dent. It did not just crack. A hole the size of her fist went completely through 6 inches of quantum reinforced metal. The laboratory fell silent. Dr. Mordock was the first to speak. "According to my readings, that punch generated enough force to destroy a small asteroid. But I barely tried," Janae protested. "I was holding back because I did not want to break your equipment." "Holding back?" Dr. Lixara's voice was barely a whisper. Janae nodded. "If I had put real effort into it, I probably would have punched through the hull of this ship." The silence stretched on as the scientists processed this information. Finally, Dr. Chiron found his voice. "Janae, do you have any idea how you are doing this?" She thought for a moment. "It feels like there is energy all around us. In the air, in space, everywhere. When I need strength, I just reach out and use it." "Reach out how?" "With my mind, I think. Or maybe with something deeper than my mind. It is hard to explain." Dr. Mordock stepped forward, his military training overriding his scientific curiosity. "This is a weapon," he said flatly. "These humans are living weapons of mass destruction." "We are not weapons," Janae replied firmly. "We are just people. People who can destroy starships with their bare hands." Dr. Mordock countered. The other scientists began talking among themselves in their various languages. Chiron could hear words like impossible, dangerous, and unprecedented being repeated over and over. Through the laboratory's windows, more ships were arriving. The news was spreading faster than they had anticipated. Janae looked around at the frightened faces of the alien scientists. "This is not going to end well, is it?" Dr. Chiron met her eyes. For the first time since this had all started, he was beginning to understand just how much danger they were all in. Not from the humans, from what the rest of the galaxy might decide to do about them. High Counselor Drexina stood before the largest gathering in Galactic Council history. Representatives from 847 different species filled the massive circular chamber on the neutral world of Kepler Prime. Emergency sessions were rare, but this one had been called with unprecedented urgency. The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed footage from multiple research ships. Humans punching through starship hulls, humans lifting objects that should have been impossible to move, humans somehow bending the laws of physics with their bare hands. "We have confirmed reports from 17 different research vessels," Drexina announced. "All have reached the same conclusion. The human species possesses capabilities that our science cannot explain or predict." Ambassador Kethron of the Vorthan Federation raised one of his forearms. "High Counselor, how many humans have been tested so far?" 53 individuals from various locations on their planet," replied Dr. Silmara, the Council's chief scientist. "Every single one has demonstrated these impossible abilities." A murmur ran through the assembly. If every human could do these things, then Earth contained billions of potential planet crackers. "What is their technology level?" asked Representative Torvex from the Mechanic Collective. "Primitive by our standards," Dr. Silmara answered. They have barely achieved spaceflight within their own solar system. Their most powerful weapons are nuclear devices that would be considered toys by galactic standards, but their bodies are weapons beyond our understanding. Admiral Zexkar of the Korthoni Empire interjected. One human could theoretically board our most advanced battleship and tear it apart from the inside. The chamber erupted in nervous chatter. Species that had never agreed on anything were united in their fear of this new discovery. Meanwhile, on Earth, more humans were disappearing. Tae-Min. Yoon had been working late in his engineering laboratory in Seoul when the lights appeared outside his window. Unlike the others, he did not resist when the aliens explained they needed his help. As a scientist himself, he was curious about what they wanted to learn. Now he found himself aboard a ship belonging to the Korthon Empire, a militaristic civilization that viewed everything through the lens of potential warfare. "Show me what you can do," Admiral Nextera commanded. She was different from the peaceful researchers Daeho and the others had encountered. Her gray skin was marked with ceremonial scars. Her eyes held the cold calculation of a career soldier. Taemin looked around the testing chamber. It was more like an arena than a laboratory. With blast-resistant walls and automated weapon systems watching his every move, "What would you like me to do?" he asked. "Hit that target." Admiral Nextara pointed to a practice dummy made from military-grade armor plating. Tae-Min approached the dummy. He was not a fighter like Sayoung or a laborer like Daeho. He was an engineer who spent his days designing computer circuits. But when he touched the dummy, he could feel the same strange energy that others had described. He pushed gently against the dummies. Chest his hand went completely through, the armor plating and out the other side. "Admiral." Nextara's eyes widened. "You barely touched it." "I know," Taemin replied, pulling his hand back. It felt like pushing through water. On another ship, Myung Kim was having a very different experience. She had been taken from the hospital where she worked as a doctor in Busan. The aliens who captured her belonged to the Nexari Collective, a species known for their peaceful nature and philosophical approach to problem-solving. "We do not wish to test your physical capabilities," Elder Phylos explained. "We want to understand how your mind works." Myung sat in a comfortable chair while strange devices scanned her brain activity. Unlike the military testing chambers, this room felt calm and welcoming. "What are you looking for?" she asked. "We want to know if your incredible physical abilities are connected to enhanced mental capabilities," Elder Phylos replied. "Some of our philosophers believe that consciousness itself might be the key to understanding your powers." As the brain scanners worked, Myung found herself thinking about the strange sensations she had experienced since being brought aboard the ship. She could sense things that should have been impossible to detect. The emotions of the aliens around her, the energy flowing through the ship's systems, even the gravitational pull of nearby stars. "Elder Philosi," she said suddenly, "I think I can feel your thoughts." The elderly alien's large eyes grew even larger. "That should not be possible. We use telepathic shields specifically to prevent mind reading." "It is not mind reading exactly," Myung explained. "It is more like feeling the shape of your thoughts. Right now you are worried about something. Something about what my abilities might mean for the galaxy." Elder Philosis checked his instruments. The telepathic shields were working perfectly. Yet somehow, this human was sensing his emotional state anyway. Back on Kepler Prime, the emergency session was reaching a critical point. "We have 3 options," High Counselor Drexena announced. "First, immediate containment. We isolate the human species on their home planet and prevent them from spreading. Throughout the galaxy, how would we contain billions of beings who can punch through starship holes?" asked Ambassador Kethron. "With great difficulty," Drexena admitted. "The second option is integration. We bring them into galactic civilization gradually, teaching them to control their abilities. And if they decide they do not want to be controlled," Admiral Zexkar demanded, "what happens when they realize they are stronger than all of us combined?" "That brings us to the third option," Drexena said quietly. "Preemptive action to prevent the human species from becoming a galactic threat. The chamber fell silent. Everyone understood what she meant. The complete destruction of Earth before humanity could spread beyond their home planet. High Counselor, Elder Whittam of the Nexari Collective, spoke up. Our latest reports suggest that human abilities may be connected to their emotional states. Fear, anger, and determination seem to amplify their power significantly. What are you suggesting? Drexna asked. I am suggesting that if we attack them, we may create exactly the threat we are trying to prevent. Dr. Silmara stepped forward. The Nexari Elder raises an important point. Our scientists have observed that human power levels increase dramatically under stress. A species-wide threat might trigger capabilities we have not yet seen. So what do you recommend? Admiral Zexkar asked impatiently. We need more information, Dr. Silmar replied. We need to understand not just what humans can do, why they can do it. High Counselor Drexina looked around the chamber at the hundreds of worried faces. In all her centuries of leadership, she had never faced a decision with such enormous consequences. I am calling for a formal vote, she announced. All in favor of immediate containment? A few dozen hands were raised, all in favor of preemptive action. Slightly more hands went up, mostly from the military species, all in favor of continued research and gradual integration. The majority of the assembly raised their hands, though many looked uncertain. The motion for continued research passes, Drexina announced. But be warned. If the humans prove to be a threat to galactic stability, we will reconvene this session and consider more drastic measures. As the assembly began to disperse, Admiral Zexkar approached the High Counselor. You are making a mistake, he said quietly. These humans are not just powerful. They are unpredictable. That makes them dangerous. Perhaps Drexina replied, but destroying an entire species based on fear would make us something worse than dangerous. It would make us monsters, far away on the research ships. The human test subjects had no idea that their very existence had just become the subject of galactic debate, but they were beginning to sense that. Something big was coming, something that would change everything. Deho sat in his cell aboard the Astral Dawn, staring at the metal walls that had become his prison for the past week. Through the ship's communication system, he had learned that humans were being taken from Earth by the dozens. Each day brought news of more research vessels arriving at different locations around his home. Planet Dot, the aliens called it scientific research. Deho called it kidnapping. How many more? He asked So-Young through the transparent barrier between their cells. The guards mentioned 47 ships now, she replied. They are taking people from every continent. Deho felt something dark building inside his chest. It was not just anger anymore. It was something deeper and more dangerous. The same energy that had let him punch through starship armor was growing stronger. Fed by his frustration and helplessness, they cannot just steal people, he said, his voice tight with controlled rage. They think they can, Hyanwu called from his cell down the corridor. Because they believe we do not have the power to stop them, do we? Gane asked from her own cell. Before anyone could answer, Dr. Chiron appeared in the corridor with several guards. His gray skin was darker than usual, a sign of stress among his species. I need to speak with you, he told Deho. About what? About your planet. The Galactic Council has made a decision about humanity's future. Deho stood up slowly. The energy inside him pulsed stronger. What kind of decision? They want to study your species more extensively. Many more ships are being sent to Earth. The process will be ... comprehensive, So-Young demanded. Dr. Chiron hesitated. They plan to take representatives from every major population center. Thousands of humans will be brought to research facilities across the galaxy. The temperature in the corridor seemed to drop. All 4 humans were on their feet now, and the energy sensors on the ship began registering unusual readings. You mean thousands more kidnappings? Deho said quietly. It is for the greater good, Dr. Chiron protested. Your species possesses powers that could revolutionize our understanding of the universe. Think of the benefits to galactic civilization. What about the benefits to humanity? Hyanwu asked coldly. Your people will be well cared for, fed, housed, studied humanely. Like animals in a zoo, Janae spat. Dr. Chiron took a step back. The energy readings were climbing rapidly, and the ship's hull was beginning to vibrate with harmonic resonance. "Please remain calm," he said nervously. "Calm." Deho laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You steal us from our homes, treat us like laboratory rats, and now you want to do the same thing to thousands more people. And you want us to remain calm?" The lights in the corridor began to flicker. The ship's gravity generators made a low, humming sound that grew steadily louder. Deho Soyoung called out, "I can feel it too. Something is building." She was right. The energy that each of them could access individually was somehow connecting between them. It felt like standing in the middle of an electrical storm. "Dr. Chiron," Ian said, with the voice of command he had learned in the military, "I suggest you leave this area immediately. I cannot do that." "You are dangerous." "No," Deho replied, his hands beginning to glow with a faint blue light. "We are angry. The first thing that happened was the gravity. Dae-Ho did not mean to affect it. He was not even sure how he did it. But suddenly, everything in the corridor that was not bolted down began to float. The alien guards found themselves drifting helplessly in midair. "Impossible," Dr. Chiron gasped. "Gravity manipulation requires technology we do not even possess." Technology. Soyoung stepped forward, and her cell door simply dissolved. The quantum steel melted like ice cream under her touch. "We do not need technology." One by one, the other cell doors disintegrated as each human focused their growing power. Ginei's door cracked into 1,000 pieces. Hyenwoo's door bent inward until it snapped in half. "How are you doing this?" Dr. Chiron demanded, still floating in the disrupted gravity field. "We told you before," Deho said, walking out of his destroyed cell. "We reach out and use the energy that is all around us." "But what energy?" "Our sensors detect nothing unusual in this area." "Then your sensors are not good enough," Janae replied. The ship's emergency alarms began blaring. Captain Veltar's voice came over the communication system, shouting orders to his crew about hull breaches and system failures. "You are damaging the ship," Dr. Chiron protested. "Good," Deho said simply. The corridor around them began to change. The walls rippled like water. The floor became transparent, showing the stars spinning outside the ship. Reality itself seemed to be bending around the four humans. "This cannot be happening," Dr. Chiron whispered. "Why not?" Hyenwoo asked. "Because your science says it is impossible." "Yes." "Then your science is wrong." On the bridge, Captain Veltar was receiving damage reports from all over his ship. The humans had somehow created a localized space-time distortion that was affecting every system on board. "Captain," his science officer called out, "the humans are not just using energy. They are creating it." "From nothing that violates the first law of thermodynamics," Veltar replied. "Tell that to them." "Sir," through the ship's internal sensors. Veltar could see the four humans standing in what had once been the detention level. They were not touching anything, but their mere presence was rewriting the physical laws in their immediate vicinity. "Send a message to the Galactic Council," he ordered. "Tell them we have a problem." In the transformed corridor, Deho looked around at his fellow humans. The anger was still there, but it was controlled now. Focused. "They want to study thousands of our people," he said. "Not if we stop them," Soyoung replied. "How?" Janae asked. "There are nearly 50 ships around Earth. We show them what happens when humans get really angry," Hyenwoo suggested grimly. Deho nodded. The energy flowing through him was no longer frightening. It felt natural, like breathing or thinking. He could sense similar power in his companions and beyond them. Could somehow feel the presence of every other human being taken by the alien ships. They were all connected now, all of them sharing the same growing awareness of what they truly were. "Dr. Chiron," Deho said, turning to the terrified alien scientist, "send a message to your Galactic Council." "What message?" "Tell them that humanity has a counter-proposal." The ship around them groaned as the space-time distortion spread beyond the corridor. Through the hole, they could see other research vessels in the distance. their lights flickering as similar energy surges affected their systems. On every ship, the human captives were beginning to understand what they were truly capable of, and the galaxy was about to learn that there were some species you simply did not kidnap. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been in progress for 18 hours. High Counselor Drexena stood before the assembly, watching the real-time reports streaming in from the research fleet around Earth. Every single ship was experiencing the same phenomenon. The human captives were no longer contained. They were not fighting their way out with weapons or violence. They were simply changing the rules of physics around them until the concept of containment became meaningless. Report. From the Astral Dawn, announced Dr. Silmara. The 4 humans have created a stable space-time bubble around themselves. They are literally existing in their own pocket of altered reality. What about the Corthoni battlecruiser? Admiral Zexkar demanded. Admiral Nextera reports that the human engineer walked through their maximum security cell walls. Not broke through them. Walked through them. As if the walls were not there? Ambassador Kethron of the Vorthon Federation raised 2 of his arms. High Counselor, we must face facts. These humans are not just powerful. They are operating on a level of reality manipulation that our most advanced civilizations cannot begin to understand. Are they attacking? Asked Elder Widom of the Nexari Collective. No, Dr. Silmara replied. That is perhaps the most remarkable thing. Despite being kidnapped and imprisoned, they are not seeking revenge. They simply want to talk. On the Astral Dawn, Captain Veltar found himself in the unprecedented position of negotiating with beings who could unmake his ship with a thought. The 4 humans stood in what had once been the detention level, surrounded by a bubble of altered space that made his scientific instruments malfunction just by being near it. They looked completely ordinary. Just people in work clothes and athletic wear. But the reality around them bent to their will. What do you want? He asked them through the ship's communication system. To go home, Deho replied simply. All of us. Every human you have taken, and if we refuse? Sawyung stepped forward, and where her foot touched the deck plating, it transformed into something that looked like crystal, but felt like warm sunlight. Captain, she said gently, you should not refuse. Is that a threat? It is a fact, Hyen Wu answered. You cannot hold us here. You cannot study us against our will. You cannot treat human beings like laboratory animals, Janae added. We do not want to hurt anyone, but we will not allow our people to be imprisoned. Captain Veltar had commanded starships for 3 centuries. He had faced hostile civilizations, navigated political crises, and survived 2 galactic wars. But he had never felt as helpless as he did standing before these 4 impossible humans. What guarantee do we have that you will not use your abilities to harm galactic civilization? He asked. The same guarantee we had that you would not kidnap us from our homes, Deho replied. None. We all have to trust each other on Earth. Something unprecedented was happening. Every human who had been taken by the alien ships was simultaneously breaking free from their captivity, not through violence or force, but by simply refusing to acknowledge the physical laws that confine them. Tay-Min. Yoon stood in Admiral Nextara's command center aboard the Corthoni battlecruiser. The restraints that had held him were now floating in midair as twisted pieces of abstract art. How did you do that? The Admiral demanded. I asked them nicely to let me go, Taemin replied honestly. And they did. Restraints do not have consciousness. They cannot choose to release you. Are you sure about that? Taemin asked. Maybe everything has some kind of awareness, and we just never learned how to talk to it. On the Nexari research vessel, Myung Kim was having a philosophical discussion with Elder Phylos while casually rearranging the molecular structure of her cell walls into flowering vines. Your abilities appear to be limited. Only by your imagination, the Elder observed. I do not think they are abilities, Myung replied thoughtfully. I think this is just what consciousness can do when it stops believing in limitations. But physical laws exist for a reason. Without them, reality would collapse into chaos. Or maybe, Myung suggested, reality is much more flexible than your species learned to believe. High Counselor Drexina received the reports with growing amazement. Every human was demonstrating the same impossible capabilities, but none of them were using these powers destructively. They were not trying to conquer or destroy, they simply wanted to return home. It appears, she announced to the assembly, that we have encountered something entirely new in galactic history. A species that has evolved beyond the need for technology to manipulate reality itself. They are dangerous. Admiral Zexkar insisted. No, Elder Whittam disagreed. They are evolved. There is a difference. Dr. Silmara stepped forward with a new report. Hi, Counselor. I am receiving a transmission from the human-designated Daeho Kim. He wishes to address the Council. Directly. Put it through, Drexina ordered. The holographic display in the center of the chamber showed Daeho standing in his impossible bubble of altered reality. Behind him, the other 3 humans from his ship stood quietly. Through the ship's sensors, similar images appeared from vessels throughout the fleet. Every human who had been taken was now free, and they were all connected somehow, speaking with one voice through Daeho. Honored members of the Galactic Council, Daeho began. His words translated into hundreds of languages simultaneously. My name is Daeho Kim. I am a construction worker from Seoul. 3 weeks ago, I was building homes for my people. Today, I stand before you representing all of humanity. The vast assembly listened in absolute silence. You took us from our world because you wanted to study our abilities. You were afraid of what we might become, but you misunderstood what we are. We are not weapons. We are not threats. We are simply human beings who have learned to work with reality instead of fighting against it. Daeho gestured. And the display showed images of Earth as seen from the alien ships. We know that you have advanced technology, that you have traveled between stars for thousands of years, that you have built a civilization spanning the galaxy. These are impressive achievements, but you built them all by forcing the universe to obey your will. The images changed, showing human cities, farms, and forests. Humans learned a different way. We learned to ask the universe what it wanted to become, and then helped it get there. What you call impossible, we call cooperation. High Counselor Drexina found herself leaning forward despite her centuries of diplomatic training. We do not want to rule the galaxy, Daeho continued. We do not want to conquer other worlds. We want to go home and live our lives in peace. But we also want to share what we have learned, if you are willing to learn it. Admiral Zexkar stood up. And if we are not willing? Daeho's expression remained calm and friendly. Then we will still go home and live our lives in peace. But the universe might become a lonely place for species that insist on fighting against it instead of working with it. The chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives from hundreds of species debated frantically in their native languages. High Counselor, Drexina called for order. Daeho Kim of Earth, what exactly are you proposing? In exchange, Daeho replied, you teach us about the galaxy. We teach you about possibility. You show us your technology. We show you how to ask reality nicely if it wants to be something different. And if reality says no, Daeho smiled. Then you accept that and try a different approach. That is what wisdom means. The vote was unanimous. 6 months later, Daeho stood in the General Assembly Hall of the United Nations in New York. He still wore his construction workers' clothes, though they had been cleaned and mended. Around him sat representatives from every nation on Earth, listening as he explained humanity's new place in the galaxy. Above the Earth, alien ships waited patiently, not as conquerors or kidnappers, but as students wanting to learn from the species that had somehow figured out how to make friends with the universe itself. The Galactic Council has offered humanity full membership, Daeho told the assembled world leaders. Not as a junior partner learning from older civilizations, but as teachers sharing something that no other species has discovered. He looked down at his hands. The same hands that had accidentally started this entire adventure by punching through what aliens considered unbreakable glass. They want to learn how we do impossible things, he continued. The truth is, we do not do impossible things. We just forgot to believe that they were impossible. Through the windows of the assembly hall, alien shuttles could be seen landing on the grounds outside. Scientists and philosophers from across the galaxy, coming to learn from construction workers and teachers and doctors and engineers who had never realized they were performing miracles every day. The aliens thought our strength came from our muscles, Deho said. But it does not. It comes from never giving up, even when logic says we should. It comes from caring about each other, even when it would be easier not to. It comes from believing that tomorrow can be better than today, even when everything seems hopeless. He paused. Looking out at the faces of humanity's leaders, they want to study what makes us human. I told them they are welcome to try. But the answer is not in our bodies or our brains. It is in the choice we make every day to keep being human, no matter what the universe throws at us.